This morning on the front page, opposition leader Mark Golding, he has issued an early morning statement drawing attention to what he says are important issues of concern in the report of the Constitutional Reform Committee, CRC. Mr. Golding says he wrote to the Prime Minister on May 7 this year, advising him that in addition to the fundamental matter of the final Court of Appeal, there were several other issues in the proposed CRC report that are of significant concern to the opposition. He says a document setting out the concerns was sent to the Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, Marlene Malahoo Fort, last Friday. Mr. Golding says the document was sent with the understanding that Minister Malahoo Fort would share the document with the other members of the CRC for their consideration, but he says the minister did not share the document.
He says she instead submitted the CRC report directly to Cabinet, denying these CRC members the opportunity to review and address the serious and legitimate concerns of the opposition. According to Mark Golding, that action clearly indicates a lack of intent by the government to seek consensus with the opposition on the proposed constitutional reform. That matter and others will be discussed at the PNP's 11 a.m. press conference this morning. Now, what we're going to do, listeners, we're seeing for the first time the comments on the draft CRC report. So the comments that the opposition members would have made, the Member of Parliament Anthony Hilton, one of the two PNP members on the CRC, and Senator Donna Scott Motley, the other representative, together they have made some comments, recommendations, suggestions to the committee about what should be a part of that CRC report and what should form the basis for the decisions that we're going to make going forward about constitutional reform. So what we're going to do, we're going to tell you what the clause in the draft report is. Just mention the clause by name, not the detail of the clause. And then we're going to tell you what the PNP's comment is, or comments are. It makes for very, very interesting reading, and I'm keen to see reaction to a particular clause and a particular and attendant comments from the PNP on the issue of dual citizenship. So you don't want to miss that this morning. Go nowhere. Stay right where you are and listen to what we're about to read. Tona?
So it's about, what would I say now, 4 pages?
Yes.
4 pages of comments from the PNP, from the opposition leader Mark Golding, on the CRC report, and where he has objections or comments or suggestions on a number of the clauses there. And I'll start, George, at 433.
Well, no, I think you should start at 414 because 414. It's important about what they want Jamaica to be called. This is very important. It may seem minor, but I suggest to you that it's very important.
I did look at that one as well. So, the opposition leader is asking, what does permanently in Jamaica mean? Being ordinarily resident here should suffice, even if brief trips have been made overseas on business or pleasure. Rather than using the criteria for disqualification for election to Parliament, that is a political process in this context, it is better to set out afresh the applicable disqualifying criteria that will apply to the President.
All right. The PNP is suggesting that the official name of Jamaica as a state is not to be changed to the Republic of Jamaica. Now, you know, listeners, that for countries that have taken on Republican status, they're known as the People's Republic of that, the Republic of Barbados, the Republic of there, and the Republic of here. The PNP is saying, no, when we get Republican status, we want the name of the country, the official name of the country, to remain Jamaica. The PNP is saying we do not want it to be changed to the Republic of Jamaica. It must remain Jamaica.
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that point.
Yeah,
that's my view.
Yeah, man. So we're just setting on what the PNP is saying. You
Before
can
offering
yeah,
commentary.
man. You can comment after. I just want the people to know what they're saying.
Yeah.
So if you may pick up at 433 and 434.
So that's on what Jamaica should be named, and that's their position on that. But 434 is about choosing the president. And the PNP is saying, we do not agree with the proposed solution to a situation where the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition have not agreed on the proposed president. Any solution which enables the president to be approved via a simple majority vote of both houses of parliament effectively incentivizes the Prime Minister to choose someone who he or she perceives as favoring his or her party, as the inevitable and perhaps desired failure to have consensus will lead to a president acceptable to the government for political reasons and who is not even perceived to be politically neutral. It says we do not consider this to be in the nation's best interests. We suggest that until consensus is achieved, the incumbent president, or GG, if this divergence occurs at the outset of the new republic, should remain in office, or if the incumbent is not willing and able to remain in office until consensus is achieved, the Chief Justice should act as president until consensus is achieved.
All right, that's the PNP's position. Then they go further. They say that clause 473 in the draft CRC report, they're saying, is this clause suggesting that the president should be immune to proceedings in cases of treason, fraud, and or violence, even though civil and criminal immunity are denied in such circumstances as per clause 472? The PNP says this appears to be incoherent.
It goes on to say, at 491, we do not agree with the proposal for appointing an interim president to act in a temporary vacancy. In Jamaica, custodies are political appointments made by the Governor General on the advice of the Prime Minister. They are not a suitable pool from where to appoint someone who is politically independent to act as interim president when the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition have not been able to agree on the person after consultation. Mere consultation does not require consensus. It says, in the absence of consensus among the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition, we suggest that the Chief Justice should act as interim president until consensus is achieved.
So there you go, the PNP again saying that if there's any confusion about the appointment of a president, they don't want an interim president in office. Let the Chief Justice serve in the role until the matters can be resolved. Attorney, I think you should take 410.3 before we go to the break.
Of course, because 410.3 now, we just dealt with how they believe that the appointment of the president should be done, and now they're speaking to the removal of the president. They say, while we accept the need for a removal process, we have concerns about the proposed approach in which the quasi-judicial process of removing a president who is not a political representative or political appointee will be via a procedure within the parliament. They say one can envisage a situation where a firm-minded president stands up for principle against a given government on some matter of national importance, such as the declaration of a state of public emergency in dubious circumstances, and the peeved government then invokes this parliamentary procedure to embark upon a political witch hunt to sully the reputation and undermine the stature of the president in the debate on the motion, even though the removal process cannot proceed without the opposition, which is a safe keep, but we'll do the comments after. It finally says on this matter of the removal of the president, for a matter like this, we favor the process to determine whether a ground for removal has been established, being managed by the judiciary, so taking it outside of the parliament and being managed by the judiciary, as exists for other important non-political constitutional offices. Example, a tribunal comprised of a chairman and not less than 2 other members from among persons who hold or have held office as a judge of a court having unlimited jurisdiction in civil and criminal matters in a member state of CARICOM, or a court having jurisdiction in appeals from any court. So they're saying that the matter for them of the removal of a president shouldn't be left up to parliamentary proceedings. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this should go to the judiciary. There should be some type of panel, tribunal, let them hear the matter, and they decide.
We are reading for you a document sent by the PNP with the press release at 5:54 a.m. on this Tuesday, and that document spells out the suggestions that the PNP is making where the process of constitutional reform is concerned. They've pronounced on what should happen with the president, the appointment of a president, the removal of a president. They say that they don't want the Republic of Jamaica to be known as the Republic of Jamaica, but it should remain Jamaica. Here now is what the PNP is saying about dual citizenship. I read. In reaction to clause 6.19 or section 6.19 of the CRC report, the PNP says, apart from Jamaican citizenship, will there be a residency requirement for quote-unquote membership in the parliament? And is this intended also to apply to the Senate? The PNP ask. The PNP ask also, if so, what is the residency requirement? Then they say at least 1 year's ordinary residency is the current requirement. Furthermore, the PNP say, the issue of dual citizenship has not been fully addressed in the report. We are a nation, the PNP say, with a large diaspora on whose remittances our country relies for balance of payments support and who provide a vital social safety net for family and friends across Jamaica in the absence of adequate support from the state. We also encourage our Jamaicans abroad to actively participate in the societies where they live, to build the brand Jamaica and increase their influence on affairs there. Here is the clincher now, listeners. The PNP say, therefore, in our view, as long as a Jamaican citizen meets the residency requirement and swears an oath of allegiance to Jamaica and to uphold and defend the Constitution of Jamaica, his or her dual citizenship should not preclude him or her from eligibility to sit in our parliament, whatever wording may be on the application form for his or her other citizenship, and whatever wording comprises the oath that he or she was required to swear to become a citizen of the other state. Now, people, in case you're wondering, well, why is George making this sound like a big thing? It is a big thing because the PNP in 2007, after the JLP won the election of September 3 that year, proceeded to take to court about 4 JLP MPs who, based on the court's ruling, Daryl Vaz was the first, taken to court by Abe Dabdoob for being a dual citizen. Vaz had to relinquish his dual citizenship. Everett Warmington had to relinquish his dual citizenship because the PNP was adamant that dual citizens ought not to sit in the parliament. The issue also affected some opposition MPs, Sharon Hay Webster, among those who were affected. So in 2007, the PNP said no dual citizen should sit in the House of Representatives or in the Parliament, both houses. And they went to court, and the court sided with them. Now, years later, the PNP says dual citizens ought to be eligible, to be allowed to sit as legislators. If I was in Space Town and you told me this, I would chase you back to Earth. I wouldn't believe.
Yeah, it is quite surprising that this is one of the positions now being taken by the opposition. I had a similar position some time ago. Yeah, had time to reflect on it. And what I've come down to, George, is that you can't swear allegiance to 2 different places. You don't live here, right? And then you want to sit in our parliament. How I don't even know how it would practically work. Yeah. So for those reasons, this one is a no for
But
me.
here's the thing. Before the challenge by Abe Dabdoob against Daryl Vaz, And if memory serves me correctly, the JLP had taken that election 32-28. And then because of the dual citizenship challenges, the election could have been flipped in court
Yeah.
because with the JLP people disqualified, then, so you had by-elections after. And people had to, without the citizenship now, seek to get legitimacy to the House all over again. And the PNP was adamant, even though there were several MPs in the history of the parliament before who had dual citizenship and who served without suspicion that they were the agent of another state. But guess what? This morning is not the morning to reopen the dual citizenship debate. I'm just telling you what the PNP have here in black and white as their contribution to the constitutional reform process and how it reconciles with the position they took and which they went to court to advance in 2007 and how those court challenges changed the way. In fact, I'm just remembering now, the then director of elections, Tana, Danville Walker, was forced to resign.
I remember
because he was a dual citizen. And the PNP were adamant that he had to go because he was a dual citizen. So no, I'm just saying, and this is the part that make them get vexed, What I am saying is not my opinion of what happened in 2007 and thereafter. It is a fact of the court challenges. In fact,
I'm remembering some others too. Gregory Mayer.
There you go.
Michael
There you
Stern.
go. There you go. And also recall that there was something unearthed in a WikiLeaks cable. I'm
Yes.
remembering that now, which said that there was division in the PNP about the party's strategy of going after the dual citizens on the JLP side because they said, well, we have a few on our benches. So what will happen to our MPs? And they said, well, no, we still are pressing ahead with this claim that no dual citizen should sit in the parliament. And so the rule is that now you can't even be nominated if you are a dual citizen. So that will have to change if the PNP is to get its way about dual citizens being part of the legislature. But we crack on. 622, you want to take that one, Tana?
So 622 focuses, this says, given that 621 adopts the principle of the commission of a serious criminal offense as the yardstick of disqualification, we suggest that rather than using the length of the sentence that was imposed in the particular case, which may depend on a host of factors, as the specific criterion for disqualification, consider using the yardstick of the offense carrying a potential term of imprisonment of at least 18 months and the threshold of what constitutes a serious criminal offense for this purpose.
All right. There's a part concerning, Tone. I want you to get to that part because I want you to take that 7.13, which concerns the composition of the Senate, because the PNP have made a significant proposal about the composition of the Senate that the listeners, I'm sure, would want to hear. But they say, point 6.3, the PNP, that they note the report's position on impeachment. We disagree with this position, say the PNP, and believe that the Constitution ought to include this procedure for holding parliamentarians to account for egregious misconduct, a matter for which we believe there is also significant public support. Indeed, the PNP say, we have tabled a private member's bill in 2022 to amend the Constitution for this purpose, as had former Prime Minister Bruce Golding in 2010, and the introduction of an impeachment procedure in the Constitution has also been a manifesto commitment of the JLP. Suffice to say, the PNP says, we are not convinced by the points raised in 6.32 as impeachment has been a successful accountability mechanism in other jurisdictions where these concerns would equally apply. So the PNP making the case for impeachment.
And just before you move on, George, to remind our listeners of what we reported in our newscast at 5 yesterday on this matter of impeachment. Our sources had told us that the recommendation from the opposition leader in relation to the impeachment bill that was shot down. It's understood that the constitutional experts have advised against impeachment in the Jamaican context as it would amount to a purely political process. The experts have reportedly told committee members that parliamentary democracies rarely employ an impeachment process And the matter of impeachment is reportedly, one of the main issues raised by Mark Golding, and we're seeing it here playing out in the report we have on hand.
I go on to 6.44, where they say the provision there is unclear. The PNP say it seems to propose a fixed 5-year term for each parliament, with the Prime Minister being required to call the election for a date of his or her choosing within a 3-month window commencing on the day that the 5-year term expires. And it quotes a section from the report that says, in the event there is consensus between the two political parties represented in Parliament, the PNP ask, what exactly is the CRC recommending? And they say this needs clarification. And since you're going to take 713, let me take this one. We're of the view that any extension of the life of a parliament beyond 5 years should only be possible if the extension is approved in the same manner as the approval of the extension of a state of public emergency, that is, by a vote supported by at least 2/3 of each House of Parliament. The PNP say we do not agree that the first extension of up to 6 months can be approved by a simple majority vote in the House of Representatives. This, the PNP say, would empower the government of the day to extend its own life beyond 5 years.
On the matter now of the composition of the Senate, the PNP is saying we do not agree with the proposal as to the composition of the Senate. It is an important safeguard to retain the opposition having 1/3 plus one of the senators, which is the only buffer against the executive completely dominating the legislature and only applies to entrenched matters. We would propose a Senate of 42, of which the Prime Minister appoints 24, the Leader of the Opposition appoints 15, and the President appoints 3. The President's 3 appointees should be persons recognized for their independence, good reputation, and eminence, and the President should consult with the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition before making the appointments.
That's what 713 says. So we're going to move from a 21-member Senate, the PNP is proposing, to a 42-member. And the split, 24, the Prime Minister's picks, 15 picks for the opposition leader, 3 picks for the president, and those 3 should be picked after consulting with the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition. John, I thought I don't know why you're chuckling.
I mean, yeah. So the president is going to have his 3, but he still needs approval from the Prime Minister and the opposition leaders to his or her.
Yeah. They have to rubber stamp it. They have to. Both of them, both the Prime Minister and the opposition leader. Not the Prime Minister alone,
Yeah.
The Prime Minister and the opposition leader.
Yes.
So the opposition leader alone picks their 15. Prime Minister alone picks their 24. But the President must get the support, the endorsement of the Prime Minister and opposition leader for his 3. Or her, his or her 3. Yeah. There you go. Is there any more that we should take that's not vague based on, in other words, you'd have to have what the section says to make sense of the recommendation that the opposition is making.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think those. So a lot to chew over there, listeners. And, I see some of our friends in the YouTube chat going crazy. There's nothing we've said about the background to the issue of dual citizenship that's an opinion. It's all fact. All of the challenges the court pronounced on them, the WikiLeaks cables are facts. The facts are what happened. All I'm saying is that as a journalist, in case people forget, I'm reminding you of what this PNP's dual citizenship position was and what their position is now. If that makes me biased, then I guess I'm a biased man. So what will be interesting is when the opposition leader sits with the media this morning at 11 to advance, to explain the position of the opposition not signing off on the document. And he's given a timeline here because in the story we carried, he said, look, we made our position known on several important issues, not just the issue of the monarchy, because people are making it seem as if that's the only point of concern the PNP is raising. Mr. Golding is saying, no, several other issues of importance were addressed by us in a manner that we felt demanded the consideration of the members of the CRC. So he says that that document was prepared with the concerns given to Tony Hilton to deliver to Mrs. Malahoo Fort in her capacity as co-chair of the CRC. He says Mrs. Malahoo Fort
On Friday?
Yeah, last Friday morning to be precise, they said. The PNP, they say Mrs. Malahoo Fort took custody of the document but did not, as they expected, oblige by sharing it for the consideration of the other CRC members. And he says that that proves to him and the PNP that the government isn't serious about the consultative part of this constitutional reform process and are only paying lip service to that. So he'll have that gripe to expand on this morning and also to explain, no doubt, the PNP's thinking behind some of the positions it has taken in the recommendations made.
Yeah. And I just wonder as well, all the comments made here, if when the consultations were going on with their members that are sitting on the committee, if when their members came to Mr. Golding and indicated certain things that were being said in those committee meetings, if he was sending back some of these comments back to the committee, or all of this was just said last Friday.
That's a very, very important point, because the timeliness of the concerns and the communication of them, that's the key. So very, 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 very good point. Yes. Was it that everything was compiled last Friday and dispatched, or were you sending them one by one as the situation emerged?
Right.
That's a question for this morning as well.
Right.
All right. Can we crack on, Tona?
Turning our attention now to matters of crime. A 15-year-old schoolboy was one of 3 people shot and killed in the same incident in East Kingston on Monday afternoon. He has been identified as Marquise Morgan, a student of Holy Trinity High. The other deceased have been identified as 20-year-old Troy Dennis and 23-year-old Sabian Clark. The incident happened during a drive-by shooting at the intersection of Wall Street and Windward Road, and 2 students were stabbed, one fatally, at the Catholic College of Mandeville in Williamsfield, Manchester, yesterday afternoon. The deceased student has been identified as Akelia White. A male student has been hospitalized arising from that incident as well. For an update on both, we're being joined by head of the JCF's Corporate Communications Unit, SSB, Stephanie Lindsay. Good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, and good morning to you, listeners.
Morning, SSB.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Nationwide this morning. SSB Lindsay, in relation to the drive-by that resulted in the death of Marquise Morgan and 2 others, the police able to have any lead so far on what may have caused this drive-by shooting? Was anyone there a target?
All right, so I spoke with the investigator earlier this morning, and they, so far, it's part of the gang conflict that's going on in that part of the community. It's a long-standing issue. But gangs and gangs, they have been having some issues recently, and they suspect that it is as a result that we saw the incident happening yesterday afternoon. They are also looking at one of the individuals that may have been the target. He said at the moment they have at least 2 persons of interest that they are pursuing. They are looking into the matter, so they are making some inroad in the investigation based on where they are just now.
And the target, you're saying there's information to suggest that one of the people killed was the target?
That's what they're looking on. So there are still many lines of inquiries that they're looking at and pursuing. But so far, they feel that one of the persons may have been the target, and then because the other persons were there, because it's a space in the community that persons were just there, and the incident happened. I mean, even the 15-year-old child that was killed, he's the son of a policeman, one of our frontline officers from another police division. So we also express our condolences to him.
Marquise Morgan and the others, they're all from that community?
Yes, they're all from that community. All the persons are from that same community.
And what are they? What's you said? There's an ongoing gang war in that area. What's the bone of contention? What are they warring about?
Well, it's long-standing. You know that a lot of times they're in conflict for different things. It's some of the things that have been carried forward from previous conflicts. So from time to time, either they are fighting for dominance of space, they may be fighting for some kind of limited resources and spoils. But I think for the most part, when you have those kind of conflicts, people are fighting for space and ownership of space because within their network, there's benefit for them. So from time to time, we do see these different incidents where they're at each other, they intervene, they are good for a while, then a new conflict develops. They're not very good at managing conflict without resorting to violence. So it is something that in that general space for a very long time we see, and we have done lots of work. They come together sometime, but when they have fallen out, they resort to violence.
SSP, insofar as the safety, I want to take you a little bit away from that to the safety in schools issue. And I know that practically the police can only do so much and no more. But in terms of I don't know if you still call it the Safe Schools program, have you had a review of the police's intervention in schools to say, well, then how can we use the resources that we have at our disposal to be more effective in stemming the tide of violence that we're seeing in the nation's schools?
Well, of course, as you mentioned, we still have the Safe School program, which is done in collaboration with the Ministry of Education. And, of course, you know that the schools are really run by the principal and the ministry. So we partner with them to support the whole issue of, reduction of violence in school among students. And we have a number of police officers who are trained as school resource officers that work in a number of schools. As a matter of fact, we continue to get more requests for school resource officers, but we don't have so many police officers available to be in every single school that has a problem. So they continue to have the community safety and security departments in all the divisions that work with the schools.
And SSP, we're running out of time, but it's precisely because I know you don't have the numbers that you would like to make a carpet deployment across the island. You are limited in your numbers. So with what you have, do you think you are being effective in your mission?
Yes, I believe that they are very effective, and they continue to look at the program. I mean, we do targeted intervention, so you know that way you have the more serious issues, that's where you're going to put most of the resources. But it is a very good program, and we continue to examine it in collaboration with the schools to see how much more we can do, because we see shifts in patterns of violence and things that happen. So even as the shifts are taking place, we also have to shift in some of the strategies that we're using in these interventions. So it's always work in progress.
Hear you on that. Thank you for your time this morning, SSP. All the best to you and your team.
You're welcome.
That's SSP Stephanie Lindsay. She is in charge of the Constabulary Communication Unit. Tona, we understand that the Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs wants to join us for a brief reaction. Well, she wants to provide a reaction to the timeline published by the opposition in that statement sent this morning at 5:54, and we're trying to get her on the phone. So, yeah, we are waiting. We're trying to make contact with her just now. I think we have her.
Right. Yeah. To find out from her as well why, if it is true that
she's with us,
the comments were shared and wasn't shared with the other members of the committee. Minister Malahoo Fort?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning to you. So the opposition leader has sent out a document, comments on the draft CRC report, but he's saying in the statement that was attached with this report that he sent over these comments last Friday to you, but that you did not share the document with the rest of the members of the CRC. True?
You have me on air at this time?
Yes,
you are, ma'am.
Good morning, George. Good morning to the
Minister.
listeners. Just to say that accuracy matters. It really matters. I'm not sure if the leader of the opposition, what is happening there. At the last meeting of the CRC, when we were advised that the leader of the opposition had made comments on the draft that he looked at, I asked what were those comments. I did not get them in. I can't recall how much was shared, but later on, Mr. Hilton emailed me to send and sent the memo from the leader of the opposition, and I'm just pulling up the email to indicate what was shared to me. The impression that is being given is not an accurate impression, and it's really, really unfortunate. So that every attempt was made to respond to the matters raised by the opposition. In fact, the deliberations of the committee took into account at every stage the feedback from the members, the input of the members, and along the way, they would indicate the need for them to consult with their leader. So at all times, the deliberations took place mindful that the decision-making modality was to arrive at consensus. Even at the 11th hour, after we had deliberated and arrived at consensus on some of the recommendations, the opposition raised issues, not in the meeting, but via the WhatsApp group, and those concerns were taken into account, and the proposed recommendation changed to reflect the concerns, changed. And this was after we had believed we had arrived at consensus. What was shared with me by Mr. Hilton was that he was authorized to share the comments of the leader of the opposition. The stance that was taken previously was that they were not shared because I believe he and Senator Scott Motley were to meet with the opposition leader to express to him that not all of the matters needed a change in the recommendation. The matter about the name of Jamaica, for example, there is no recommendation to change the name of Jamaica to the Republic of Jamaica, but that Jamaica will, among other things, mean the Republic of Jamaica because we're also an archipelago, and that is a matter that can be dealt with in how the legislation is drafted. So not every issue that was raised in the comment would require a revision of the recommendation made. But, the leader of the opposition, the committee had expressed a desire for a meeting with the Prime Minister and the leader of the opposition. And a brief meeting took place behind the Speaker's chair. And in that meeting, the leader of the opposition indicated that he was not interested so much in meeting with the committee, but that he wanted a clear statement from the Prime Minister on the way forward with the final court, realizing that both sides may not be able to agree on the way forward. The Prime Minister gave a commitment that he would begin the formal canvass again, because we had canvass, and he would start with the parliamentary group and gave a commitment to make the response.
So just to be clear,
the Prime Minister was abroad. I'm sorry?
Just to be clear, Minister, the comments on the CRC report or
Yes.
the recommendations that were there,
Yes.
from the opposition leader, those comments are always coming to the members of the committee.
Yes.
And
The leader, yes, the leader of the opposition did not write to me at all. Mr. Hilton merely said to me that he was at the time when we were discussing the matter of the comments from the leader of the opposition or the delay in the opposition members not signing. When he came to the meeting, he indicated he didn't at that time share the comment because we were proposing that he and the other opposition members indicate in the report that on some of the matters they needed further time to deliberate. He was not prepared to have that reflected in the report because it was all the report. The complete signing of the report was delayed for over 2 weeks. At no time was there any rush to sign anything. We had a schedule that we were working with. I had to take steps to restrict the sharing of the draft report because we had an unfortunate event in the committee where at a very sensitive point, a draft document was leaked. And what it resulted in was discussion in the public sphere on the draft. And I recall even posts being made, which I had to ask to be taken down because it was a draft document. But it was made clear that the restriction on the draft did not apply to the opposition members of the committee because I understood that they needed to have their internal discussion with
Minister,
their leader.
on the point of understanding,
Yes.
I'm reading the opposition's press release sent this morning,
Yes.
and it says that after the letter was sent to the Prime Minister May 7th, advising that in addition to the matter of the final Court of Appeal, there were several other issues. A document setting out those other issues was sent to you with, here's a part that I'm curious about. It says,
Yes.
on the understanding that as co-chairperson of the CRC, Minister Malahou Fort would share the document. What is it that would have given the opposition the feeling that there was an understanding that their transmission of this letter to you would then result in you sharing with the rest of the committee members?
George, that is plainly not accurate. I'm saying that's not accurate at all. When it was brought to my attention that the leader of the opposition had made his own comments, his members said to me that they needed to meet with him in order to discuss those comments because some of them were matters that they needed to indicate to him that, their presence in the committee were a give and take. This is what Mr. Hilton shared with me. Minister, I am authorized to share the attached comments of the leader of the opposition on the final report. Please advise on the steps to be followed by the CRC in responding to the comments. That's it. Thanks. That's it. That's it. So again, there seems to be something else that I'm unaware of. The opposition members have engaged in the CRC reform process in goodwill.
Yeah.
At every stage, they have been unequivocally clear about the positions of the opposition. At every stage, they indicated that they needed to go back and confer, and they came back on the matter of the Senate, just about every contentious matter.
So you are saying, Minister, that there's nothing that you would have done that could have caused the opposition to write this statement. This is the climactic statement of the climactic line in the statement. This action, just let me read it, Minister. This action clearly indicates, by virtue of you not sharing the report, the report, and then going ahead straight to cabinet with the CRC report, they're saying this action clearly indicates a lack of intent by the government to seek consensus with the opposition on critical issues in the proposed constitutional reform. This suggests a lack of confidence because their understanding was betrayed. And you're saying...
No, that is not correct. That is so not correct and so unfortunate. So unfortunate. I don't think Mr. Golden himself could even believe that to be true. Because I have every reason to believe that his members would have accurately and faithfully reported to him the matters. He was overseas. We waited and waited and waited and waited because I understand the bind that the members that his action placed them in. Bear in mind that Mr. Golden would not have been present in the committee. He would not have been privy to the deliberations, the give and take that would have taken place. So when I pleaded and pleaded. A proposal was made, even a paragraph formulated, and the reluctance on the part of Mr. Hilton made it clear to me that, you know what, perhaps something else is happening that I don't understand. But it was always made clear that the report would go forward.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a rush. It didn't come down to a rush.
Yes.
It was held. Because not all members signed at the same time, you know.
Yes.
We had, I think, in the end, there were 4 members who did not sign, the 3 nominated by the opposition and 1. And one just said, you know, after all of the revision and things, just needed to clear head. And I said, fine. That one came back and signed. So we waited and waited and waited and waited and waited. Asked, would you like a minority paragraph to be sent to say that on X matters, specify those matters? We were not even told what those matters were. So the understanding was the matter would have been placed before the cabinet. The committee is to come and deliberate. As trying to ensure, so you know, the matter goes to cabinet. We don't put it out in the public and then afterwards. And I'm trying to ensure that the matter could be deliberated on as soon as possible to ensure that the report becomes available to the public.
Is there so much?
There is no rush. There was no rush to sign or do anything.
Is there so much division, Minister, at this point? You've mentioned a couple times that the opposition members of the committee participated in the deliberations in good faith and there was no animus in their participation. Notwithstanding that, given this position now of the opposition leader, they're calling a press conference for 11 a.m. this morning. Is there so much to divide the committee members from the opposition members of that committee so as to stall a process that has taken long enough?
George, here's what I would say. You know, the members of the committee have dedicated their time over a year to be present at the meeting. These are not paid members of the committee. The work has been hectic and heavy. Week after week, sometimes multiple times for the week, we have met. We have deliberated. Subcommittees formed and met. A lot of work was put in. This is a bipartisan process that was established and a wider society process. All right, notwithstanding any concerns raised anywhere about whether it was representative enough, this mechanism, an advisory mechanism with oversight for the process, was put in place in a bipartisan way. A member from each house for the opposition. And there was a reason for that. And we have worked faithfully over the years. A lot of resources.
We're almost out of time, Minister, so I'm asking you, does the ship run aground? Does the ship run aground now? Are the differences so deep?
You tell me.
No, you tell me, Minister. You tell me.
No. This is a matter for the opposition. This is a matter for the opposition because it began with the court, then it moved to other matters. I am doing my best to ensure that the issues of concern are addressed. But for the leader of the opposition to say, he wrote to me and I refuse to put it, it's plainly false.
Hear you on that. Thank you for your time this morning, Minister, at short notice. Thank you, the Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs and co-chair of the Constitutional Reform Committee of the CRC, Marlene Malahou Fort.